Alright, peace and greetings, YouTubers. Kanye West, bruh, what you doing, man? See, this is why I tell you guys, do not put all your energy into these celebrities because they will show you who they are each and every time. Goodness, it's like, for some reason, when these celebrities start making $102 and $300 million, then all of a sudden they want to be enlightened. Then they want to tell you all about your mentality and how you need to see the world through their lens, and then you can be somebody too, and you can reach epic greatness. And I'm kind of like, listen, y'all always want to wait till y'all rich to do that. Talk to me when you broke and don't have anything. Then you and I can relate, because we can talk about the same struggle and what I had to do and what you had to do and how we can make it work from there. Don't talk to me after you got all the resources in the world, because you weren't doing that when you didn't have nothing. But anyway, and side note, don't be fooled. Kanye West is one of my favorite rappers. I think he's probably one of the greatest of the last 20 years. Always made great albums, great music videos, great visionary, great concerts, all that great stuff, really dope producer. However, I do not suffer from Soul Train syndrome. So just because I like Kanye's music does not mean he can't be held accountable when he does some nonsense. And anybody that has a problem with me coming after Kanye, just like Kanye said, change your mentality. So, let me get to the main issue. So, as we know, Kanye's kind of been off the deep end for like the last 10 years anyway. He's been a little loony for a while. We, at this point, have known the loony Kanye more than we know the one we were introduced to. And so, he made this tweet where he was talking about he really liked the way Candace Owens thinks. Now, if you know who Candace Owens is, Candace Owens, in my opinion, is pretty much a right-wing conservative pundit. You know, she's a black woman, says a lot of anti-black stuff all the time. She kind of sits at that same table with people like Paris Denard and that sheriff from Milwaukee. What's his name? Is that Joe Clark? No. Joe Clark is from the movie Lean on Me. Free Mr. Clark. David Clark, that sheriff with the, has a real thick black mustache. I mean, he puts like 3 layers of that just for men in that mess. Like boom, pow, 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 pow. And then he'll go in there with that cowboy hat and say all this anti-black stuff. They all sit at that same table. They all share that same mentality about, slavery was however long ago, get over it. Pull yourself up by the bootstrap. If black people get shot and killed by the police while they're unarmed, it's because they weren't wearing Dockers and Crocs. They should have pulled their pants up. All that crazy stuff. And pretty much, I consider them all to be people that sit at that table of what you call the table of a mouthpiece for white supremacy in blackface. Okay, that's pretty much what it is. And what that means is, a lot of times, there are a lot of white people who have very racist viewpoints and racist ideologies, i.e. Fox News. And pretty much, a lot of those people have a lot of things that they would love to say, but they want to keep their jobs. They have things that they would love to say, but they don't want to be attacked on social media. So what do? You get a black person to say it. That way you can feel justified when you say your nonsense. So people like Candace Owens and David Clark and Paris Denard do a great job of spewing a lot of anti-blackness into the airwaves and putting out messages out there that are not actually true. And so that's pretty much what Candace Owens is, in my opinion. And so Kanye made a tweet about that. Then he followed up with some more tweets a few days later where he was talking about, people who were stuck in the past, can never get out of the past. And I'm like, okay, Kanye, where we going with this? He must have not took his meds today. Kim, what is in the cereal? Kim, what you put in that cereal? And then, because you remember, she told us to get over, what's that name? The Jeffree Star person. Because remember, he was calling black women nigga bitches or something like that. And she said, oh, well, get over it because look how good he does the shadow in my face. I'm like, what? So I understand what household he's living in, so it might make sense why he's saying all this. And so, he said that, and then he said another thing that really got me, where he was saying, slavery was once the trend, but apparently it's still the trend today. I said, slavery was once the trend? You're saying that like it's a trend, like going to 7-Eleven on Free Slurpee Day and getting a free slushie because it's 7-Eleven. That's a trend, not slavery. We can't really equate the two. What are you talking about? And then he followed up with the whole bit about self-victimhood or self-victimization as a disease. I said, dang. He is saying all of the right-wing talking points that I hear all the time. I was waiting for to pull yourself up from the bootstrap tweet. I was waiting for that one. And so, let me get into why I think what Kanye currently tweeted is destructive in my opinion. Kanye West is a public figure. He's a celebrity, and not only is he a public figure and a celebrity, but he's what I like to call a social luxury celebrity. Meaning, he is so popular that even when he's not working on anything or he has no new music out, everybody knows who he is. If you go to Cambodia, people know Kanye West. If you go to Argentina, people know Kanye West. If you go to some random part of North Dakota, people know Kanye West. And so what that means is, when there are people who cannot culturally relate to black people as a collective, or maybe they don't know any black people, or maybe they're not really sure the plight of black people, they look to people like Kanye to give them some kind of validation for their own concerns and their questions and their voids. And so when Kanye makes certain statements like that, some people will take Kanye's statements and believe that they ring true, or believe that it gives justification. So even some of these policymakers who may want to cut some kind of program, I don't know, some kind of program that helps people who may need a little extra help because they're working, but the cost of living is so high that even with them working 2 and 3 jobs, they're still not making enough to make it to the end of the month. They see stuff like that and they say, oh, well, Kanye said they need to change their mentality, so I can go ahead and cut this program, because if people say I'm racist, I can just equate this to what Kanye said. I'm good. Okay. I always question what Donald Trump was up to when Steve Harvey and Kanye both went to Trump Tower after he got into office. I said, But anyway, so let me get into the issues that I have, because I think a lot of what he said is just so problematic, and I'm like, Kanye, why every single time? Every time we think you almost might be coming back home, you get lost again. You GPS took you to the wrong spot. You about to drive off the cliff, man. And so let me get into a few things. The first thing I want to talk about first, which I couldn't wait to get to, was slavery. All right, so let me just say this. When I tell you why I'm over people always telling black people to get over slavery, and don't worry, black people are doing it too. Sometimes I get it from my own people. They be, when are we going to get over slavery? When are you going to read a book and understand why slavery still affects your black ass today? Then we can have that conversation. So let's talk about that. I hate when people say get over slavery or it was this long ago, because it's always directed towards the people who are on the receiving end of slavery from a negative standpoint. It's always the people who did not receive the benefits that came from something like slavery. You know what I mean? For black people, slavery did nothing good for us. I don't care what you want to say. You can sit here and lie and say, oh, well, it brought you to America. It made you great. Save it. I don't want to hear none of that crap. Slavery was never anything good for black people. However, because for some reason, black people, we have to get over it. So I'm always like, listen, if black people have to get over slavery, that means I personally believe that everybody else needs to seam rip anything associated with slavery in this country. That means white people and these corporations and these universities that pretty much were established because of slavery, they have to give back everything they ever had. And let's see where the country is then. If we want to get over slavery, it needs to be universal. Don't just tell black people to get over slavery and then you're still walking, talking, and living and benefiting from the long-term effects of that slavery, trying to tell me how to get over it, okay? You can't sit here with your Georgetown degree, a university that literally depended on the selling of slaves for them to stay afloat, to tell me that I need to get over slavery when your degree is the symbol of my oppression. Shut your mouth and mind your business. Anyway, and so that's the issue I have with that, because it's bigger than slavery, because slavery led into other things. And you have to think about what was going on in the country during slavery. During slavery, black people were not allowed to do anything. They weren't allowed to learn. They weren't allowed to have anything. Even the black people who were free, the limits to their success, it was right there in your face. There was only so much that they were able to do in that time period. So during that time period when you had something like slavery, you weren't allowed to read, you weren't allowed to write, you weren't allowed to have businesses, you weren't allowed to vote, you weren't allowed to do anything. What was going on with everybody else in the country who was white during that time? The creation of corporations, the creation of companies, the starting of universities, the starting of all these different things. And you have to fast forward years from now into 2018, and a lot of these corporations that exist, they were founded with money and revenue that came from slavery. When you look into the fact that even when slavery ended, you had sharecropping, you had redlining, you had the school to prison pipeline, you have the prison industrial complex, you have the thing with food deserts, you have pretty much a situation where your schools are funded by property taxes, but if you live in a shitty neighborhood, due to the results of something like redlining, and due to the results of white flight, and due to the results of something like people being denied the GI Bill if they were black after World War II, meaning that they did not qualify for FHA loans, meaning they couldn't get housing, they could only get housing in certain sections of town, usually in the places that were designated for black people. When you talk about the initial purpose of what public housing was for once it was designated for black people, when you have all that going on even today, and those generational effects are still kicking in, and the residual and long-term effects are still affecting people today, you can't tell people to get over slavery when they're still living in it. You know what I mean? Like, mind your business. What are you talking about? And so even when black people say that, I'm like, I have to look, and I'm like, well, let me look at your life here. I'm not trying to judge you, but pretty much you're in the same boat that I'm in. So tell me how great you're living right now from that 9 to 5 that you don't feel like going to every day. Yeah, you seem to be really, really free. But anyway, so by the way, I like my job. Mine is actually a great one. But so I'm always just like, it's important to tell people to get over slavery, because people look at that as, like, here's the thing. Slavery and everything associated with it, all of the Jim Crow laws, all of that stuff, the black codes, the fugitive slave laws, all of that stuff, okay? Here's the issue. All of that is structural. All of that was a system. So when you tell somebody to get over slavery, which, mind you, that system is still in play, all that stuff still rolls in today, you're talking about the individuals who are affected by it, and you're telling them to challenge something like an entire system and a structure that has founded this country and pretty much the rest of the world, because without slavery, Portugal's economy would have collapsed. That's why they brought 5.8 million people over into the United States. They were the biggest ones shipping them out. Okay, that's why Portugal got all that nice architecture. Okay, slavery was keeping them afloat. Slavery kept the UK afloat. And then when you get into colonization and everything like that, all that colonization that they did over in Africa kept all of Europe afloat. So, you know, if you take all of that out of the equation, none of those places would exist in the form that they exist today. So you can't tell me, you know, if you're talking about an entire system that's in play, that's global, you can't tell people that they need to just change their mentality and get over it and it will go away just because you're still benefiting from it. You sound very foolish and uneducated. So I need you to do better. And I need you to just not talk because you're embarrassing yourself. And people like me are tired of always having to explain this stuff to you each and every time. Which leads me to my next point, because I know people want to say victimhood. There you guys go with that victimhood. Because that's one of the main comments I get every single time when I make any kind of video. The funniest thing, when I made that video about Donald Trump and the whole food stamp program and all the other stuff, the biggest comment I saw, victimhood mentality, pull yourself up by the bootstrap, it's not supposed to be a lifestyle, here goes that victimhood. And the funniest thing is, it was always usually like the 70, 60-year-old white man that grew up in the 1950s, and you know, I worked hard and look what I did, you gotta pull yourself up from the bootstrap. And I'm like, look man, you grew up in the 1950s. The 1950s, an era where the United States economically was having a great boom because they just blew up all their competition during World War II. So the rest of the world was rebuilding. The United States was able to have industry and corporations get even bigger than they were off of the revenue that they made from slavery. So on top of that, you grew up in an era where, one, you could have a job that's only paying you $20,000, $30,000 a year, live off of one family income where only the husband's working, the wife is at home cooking, taking care of the kids, and off of that one income, that he was able to take care of the mortgage. He was able to get a new car every 2 or 3 years. He was able to pay for all the kids' college out of pocket because state tuition was like $1,000 or $2,000. He was able to do all these different things. Healthcare was not super expensive. Produce was not super expensive. Life was great. It was easy. And so those are those same ones that want to tell millennials today in 2018 who all have these master's degrees but are getting jobs that pay $29,000 a year. Tell them to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. You just got to work hard. Stop complaining. And I'm like, you're saying all this, but you're working at a company that you got grandfathered into and you're making like $160K, but then when I ask you to make a PDF, it's rocket science. Humble down. But anyway, going back to my point, let's get into this victimhood thing. What I want people to understand is this. Anytime people like me and a lot of these other people who are talking about the plight of black people as a collective are talking, you know, when they talk about what's happened in the past, they're not saying that black people can't do anything because all of these things have happened to us. It's more so a narrative of, we're going to be great and we're going to get to wherever we need to be. Or let me speak on my terms. I'm going to be great and get to wherever I need to be. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Nothing will ever stop me. But I just want you to know that while I've been on my journey to get to my greatness, these are the different hurdles that I've had to meet. These are the hurdles that people like me have had to run into each and every day. You know, as I was going to my job interview, I got pulled over and yanked out the car. Okay, as I was going to Taco Bell, I got pulled over and met with a taser gun in my face. True story. I was just in my house. We was just trying to get some Taco Bell for me and my brother. Pulled over, yanked, and met by 6 squad cars because they thought I matched the description of somebody else, and I had to sit on the curb for 2 hours in the rain. Okay? That's people's reality. So it's saying these are the different things that I've had to run into. I'm still going to get to where I need to be, but I just need you to know it's not your place to criticize how I'm getting to where I need to go, or it's not your place to criticize why I haven't got there yet when you didn't have to deal with any of that and you got to skate on right in. And a lot of times you got to skate on the blades of mediocrity into what you got into, and people who look like me have to be 10 times as great just to be considered half as good. So you might want to just mind your business and be quiet. We're still going to get there. We're going to be great, but it's not your place to tell black people how to do something or how to feel when in reality you haven't had to work hard for anything. And even if you did work hard, you had all the resources because those resources were afforded to you due to the long-term effects and the residual effects of things like slavery and sharecropping, which funded this country and created everything that we have today. So that's the reality. That's how I look at it. And so when people always talk about this whole changing your mentality, you can't tell a group of people who are disenfranchised that all they need to do is change the mindset and it will erase the system that they're still living under, because that system is still in power. You know what I mean? It's like, how stupid can you be if you're going to say that nonsense? That's why I'm looking at Kanye like, dude, what are you doing? And there's a thing where it's just like, you got to have integrity. You know what I mean? How much money does it take for you to sell out? Like, really, like, a lot of these black entertainers just sell out so quickly once they get so much money. A lot of them just want white acceptance. You know, Kanye, I don't mean to be the one to bust your bubble. Your white appreciation certificate is not going to come in the mail. Okay, it's not happening. And that's the thing. We even look at, like, a lot of these celebrities who get into that room where they're super rich. So, like the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncé's, you know, they got money out the behind, just sitting on top of money. Think about what it is that most of them do. Most of the black individuals who are these big, these big elite clubs, usually they're entertainers, they're athletes. So even when they're sitting at the table with these big bankers and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all of them, they're still not even respected as individuals. They're looked at as the entertainment. If Beyonce gets invited over to, some big rich, I'm talking billionaire. Well, hell, Beyonce, I think she's a billionaire too at this point. But I'm talking multi-billionaire, like $60 billion kind of billionaire. Okay, billionaire where you get your own zip code. Okay, she gets invited to some stuff like that. Even though she's Beyonce, and to us she's like the greatest and the this and the that. To them, she's just the entertainment. She's the entertainment for the tea break. Yes, you can come to our house, but it's only because you entertain. We don't respect you as an individual. We don't respect what you value. We don't care what you think. We don't care what you stand for. We don't support your cause. If you have some charity, we could care less about it. Get up here and shake. That's what we want you to do. Same thing with a Jay-Z. Same thing with a Kanye. And I think Kanye knows that, and Kanye's in denial, because I'm like, Kanye, you're the same person who would stop your concert back in the day and rant for 20 minutes about how you couldn't get into the fashion industry and how nobody respected you. And really what I wanted to say is like, listen, it's that, but it's also them clothes is just terrible, man. Some of them clothes, it looks like you straight off the set of The Walking Dead. But that's just my opinion, I'm just saying. And so the issue with that is just like, I need these celebrities to humble down. That's why I got pissed off with Steve Harvey too. I really don't like him that much, but at night I like to listen to the urban AC radio stations because, they play all the nice, smooth R&B throwbacks. But in the morning, his radio show comes on. So I'm sleeping, getting up. I hear him ranting about how no black person in this country should be sleeping past 6 a.m. And I'm just like, see, this is the stuff I'm talking about. Black people, we're always pushed this narrative where we got to come home from work to do some more work. We got to get up early. Nobody else has to do this stuff. And so pretty much the burden of our oppression is always put on us. It's not put on the people who have created this society where we have to stay in this oppressed position. And here's the thing. Oppression is not always something economic. It's not always socioeconomics. It's that, but it's a bunch of different things. It's livelihood. It's peace of mind. It's your health. And so when he was saying nobody should be sleeping past 6 a.m. if you're black in this country and you need to be working hard, you need to be working towards your goals, that's cool and fine and dandy if you're like, in my opinion, maybe from my experience, that might almost make sense because I don't have children yet, or I'm not married, so there's nobody depending on me. So if I want to be random and quit my job and move to Cambodia and do some other stuff, I can do that because there's nobody depending on me. But what about the people who don't have that experience? Or even the fact that I'm in a position where I have my little salary job, but I work 11 to 7. I don't have to get up as early. So, I can get up a few hours early and do some work. And then when I get home, I can do some stuff. But, I think they forget. What about people who don't get that luxury? What about people who are working 2 or 3 jobs, who work very, very hard? They're tired. Why do you want them to get up at 6 a.m.? And let's backtrack some more. Let's look at the people who work 2 and 3 jobs that are part-time jobs that, they make $20,000, $30,000 a year. They're not making enough. They still have kids. Maybe something happened. Maybe they did everything. They got married. They had children. Maybe the husband died. Maybe the husband went to jail. Maybe the husband got killed. Something happened. Maybe the husband died. Or maybe it's the wife that left or died or whatever, this, that, and the third. Now they're in some kind of socioeconomic struggle and everything is tough. They don't have that kind of energy to go and just go live their dreams because now they have children. They have a mortgage to pay. They have all these different things going on. Maybe they have to take care of their sick parents. Maybe they're sick themselves. Maybe they don't have the right health care. Maybe there's all these different things going on. These rich-ass celebrities, they get all this money and then they want to sit here and vilify people who they think are beneath them and tell them why they're poor, tell them why they're not successful, when in reality, they haven't walked in their shoes. This is why I get to know these celebrities because it's just, they're just not, they're not realistic. They're coming from a space of privilege at this point. And mind you, at the end of the day, they're still black because when they get pulled over, it's the same nonsense. How many black celebrities always tell you about the experience they had when they got pulled over? Like, are you kidding me? And that's why I just say it's very dangerous when you have people like Kanye West spewing stuff like that because it makes people who are in positions of power, and at this point I'm speaking of people in politics, they listen to rhetoric like that and they use that as justification. Those same lines that you heard Kanye tweeting all day are the same lines that you hear on Fox News every day, are the same lines that you hear a lot of these crazy right-wing politicians say. And mind you, this is not just Republican, Democrat. It's kind of all in the same boat at this point. But my point is, all of that is destructive. And you as a black person, once you have finally elevated yourself into a position where you now have a little bit of power, you need to use that to do better for your own community. Otherwise, be quiet. Spend it on yourself and do what you need to do, but don't speak on my behalf. Don't try to criticize or vilify what I got going on because you made it and you think I'm not doing whatever I need to do. Okay? Because I think it's stupid to sit here and try to say you have to forget the past. You don't. You're not supposed to forget the past, because when you forget the past, things repeat. Like, if we look at where we're at right now, there's this whole great black awakening going on. You know, everybody's super pro-black and Wakanda forever this, and, you know, all the entertainers are a little bit more pro-black again. Their music is talking about different things. You know, J. Cole's doing what he's doing, Kendrick is doing what he's doing, Beyonce's doing what she does on stage. You know, all these different entertainers. You know, we have all these shows that are black again on television. We have variety. Like, we have different shows to choose from. There's different movies that are coming out. Our fashion, our style, our lingo, our looks, everything, everybody's trying to do us again. But if you remember, this cycle has happened before. This is the same thing that was going on in the early 90s. This is the same thing that was going on in the late 80s. This is the same thing that was going on in the early 70s. It's a cycle that repeats. If we just backtrack to that period in the 90s, we had this great black awakening then. All right, you had all these black sitcoms. You had all these black entertainers. It was just cool to be black. All the rappers were going back to Africa and all the stuff. They had the medallions on. Queen Latifah had her hat on. We had a million sitcoms. You had Cosby. You had Different World. You had Living Single. You had Martin. You had Hanging with Mr. Cooper. You had Parenthood. You had In the House. You had, show Rock. It was a ton of shows on TV, ton of movies. Okay, lots of award shows, because this is before the BET Awards. You know, you had the Lady of Soul Awards, you had the Soul Train Awards, NAACP Awards, the Vibe Awards. You had all kind of just blackity, black all day. Okay, we were just having us a great time. And then what happened? People started spewing the same rhetoric as people like Kanye. You got to move on from race. Race shouldn't be in everything. Move on from slavery. Why is everything about race? And gradually, because black people were getting a little too enlightened for people, they started to suppress some of that, and it started disappearing. And then, boom, there went the sitcoms, and there went some of the music. Because even remember, the 90s, R&B was the say-all, be-all. Where's R&B today? Climate struggling. It's barely there. You know, and so if we fast forward to like 2010, I look at 2010 as a year of just emptiness. All of that great stuff I just talked about in the 90s was gone by then, all right? Even with television, you look at something like the CW, which pretty much built its brand off the backs of black people, because remember, the CW was a merger between the WB and UPN. What kind of shows were on the WB and UPN? A bunch of shows marketed to black people. So you had Sister, and you had The Parkers, and you had Moesha, and you had One on One, and you had All of Us, and all these different shows. And once UPN built all this revenue off the backs of black people, what did they do once they merged? They don't have any black shows other than what? The Flash? And so 2010 was a really dark, gray area when it came to black celebratory anything. There wasn't a lot of movies. I think the only the only black movie I can think of that came out that had a major release in 2010 was Death at a Funeral. There was like 2 or 3 more. Tyler Perry's For Colored Girls, and like one other movie. That was literally it. Like 3 movies. 3! Literally, that got a big box office release. Like, it was just a dry spell. And so, even though we're in this great awakening that we're in now, where we got the Black Panther this, and the Coachella, Beyonce doing all that stuff, and, you know, there's all kind of things going on, and SZA's having a great time, and everybody likes Khaled, and all these different people, and, you know, it's just a great awakening. Be careful. Because once things start getting too black, they're going to repress that and get rid of it every single time. It happens every single time. And Kanye's going to be the one driving the train, because everybody loves Kanye. So, y'all better wake up. I'm telling you. But Kanye, disappointing. I just, I don't have a problem with celebrities who become successful and want to help, but when your help is actually destructive, that's a problem. Y'all have to stop blaming people for being in the positions that they're in, when in reality, your perception of why they're in the position that they're in has been told to you. You didn't witness it yourself. Yes, there are some people who could probably do a whole lot more than what they're doing, but in reality, the positions that many of us are in are positions that we were created to be in. That's the way that the country was set up. It's set up for people to be poor. It's set up for people to not be rich. It's set up for there to only be a small elite class and everybody else is working class. And that's why it's always interesting to watch working class white people go and say this same rhetoric towards black people and everything else. And I'm like, y'all are in the same boat. I don't get it. Okay? Y'all are voting for all these policies and the way that white people rejoiced when Trump was like, I'm going to get rid of the SNAP program. Go to that video I did about the SNAP program and see the commentary. I'm like, whoa, it's more white people on the SNAP program than black people. Y'all hate black people so much, and y'all see that we're the face of welfare and we're the face of all that you're willing to go and take away from the mouths of everybody just because you want to see black people work harder. I don't have time. Anyway. And mind you, this is not to generalize all white people, so don't y'all come in my comments trying to say, don't generalize me. If you don't fit the description, just mind your business and just carry on, okay? If you haven't committed the offense, you shouldn't be offended. You should understand exactly what it is that I'm saying. Anyway, Kanye, do better, all right? I don't know what Kim is putting in the food, but being around all the Kardashians is doing something to all of y'all. You and, my goodness, I'm out. Subscribe.